Netflix really seems to be preparing an interesting year on the fantasy side in 2026. But this is not just about classic wizards, dragons, or kingdom stories. From cursed Korean palaces to ghosts, from the magical realism of Macondo to a family trapped inside a mysterious house, from a new version of the Cinderella fairy tale turned upside down to a retro-futuristic detective world full of aliens, very different projects are coming. In this video, we will take a look one by one at Netflix's most eye-catching fantasy, supernatural, and sci-fi fantasy projects planned for 2026. Number 1. The East Palace. Korean dramas have become one of Netflix's strongest areas in recent years. But this new series coming on the 17th of July, 2026, does not look like just a classic palace drama. Behind a magnificent royal world, there are cursed rooms, ghosts, dark secrets, and a much more terrifying atmosphere where the living and the dead begin to mix together. So from the outside, we see a glorious palace, but inside, there is a supernatural darkness that no one can fully control. There are two characters at the center of the story, and both of them make this world much more interesting. Guchon is someone who can move between the world of the living and the world of the dead, fight spirits, and carry a special sword that can cut down ghosts. Gang is a palace official who can hear the voices of the dead. When these two come together, the story does not stay as just a haunted palace idea. The spirit world, curses, palace secrets, and a dark mystery all come into play at the same time. The cast includes strong names like Nam Joo-hyuk, Ro Yoon-seo, and Cho Seung-woo. Gucheon, played by Nam Joo-hyuk, seems like he will carry more of the action and supernatural side. Ro Yoon-seo's character Gang, because of her connection with the dead, could add a more emotional and mysterious weight to the story. The king character played by Cho Seung-woo will probably not be just a figure sitting on the throne either, because in stories like this, there is always a high chance that the curse inside the palace is connected to a major sin committed in the past. What excites me the most here is the combination of a Korean historical atmosphere with a dark fantasy horror side. Because if this is handled correctly, it will not be just a series made up of a few scary scenes. It could turn into a dark fantasy story built around power, guilt, curses, destiny, and the revenge of the dead. If Netflix uses this well, we could be looking at one of the most eye-catching Korean fantasy series of 2026. Number 2. 100 Years of Solitude, Part 2. Now we are moving into a very different fantasy world, because here there are no swords, wizards, or monsters. Instead, there is magical realism. The town of Macondo, the Buendia family, and that feeling of cursed destiny that continues across generations turn the story from a normal family drama into an almost mythological epic. The first part built the foundation of this world, and now, with the final part, we will see how that great cycle is completed. In Part 2, Macondo enters a much heavier and darker period. The fact that the war seems to be over does not mean peace has truly come to the town. On the contrary, as the outside world enters Macondo, everything becomes even more complicated. The railroad, the banana company, political tensions, and the new generations of the Buendia family slowly drag the story toward an unavoidable ending. The cast includes Marleta Soto, Claudio Cattaneo, and many different names who will join the story in the new episodes. But one of the most important characters here is actually Macondo itself, because this town does not feel like just a place where events happen. It feels like a living world that remembers the past, carries the curse, pulls everyone inside, and changes along with time. This makes the adaptation one of Netflix's most prestigious and most different projects. You may not see this series as fantasy in the classic sense, but one of the strongest examples of reality and the supernatural mixing together is definitely here. Curses, miracles, family destiny, and the cyclical movement of time are told so naturally that after a certain point, you stop trying to separate what is real from what is magical. And that is exactly where the true power of magical realism begins. Number 3. The Last House. Now we are coming to a more closed-off, more tense, and more claustrophobic story. This film, coming on the 7th of August 2026, may not look like a full fantasy project at first glance. But a family being trapped inside their own house by an unexplained force pulls the story directly into supernatural sci-fi and dark mystery territory. There is no magical kingdom here, but the house itself almost turns into a cursed world. The premise is simple but very effective. One morning, a family realizes they cannot leave their house. The doors will not open, the windows are useless, no one knows what threat is waiting for them outside, and the resources inside slowly begin to run out. I think this idea is very strong, because the fear does not only come from the mysterious thing outside, it also comes from being stuck inside, family pressure, and how the instinct to survive will change the characters. On the acting side, there are two notable names, Greta Lee and Wagner Moura. Greta Lee is an actress who stands out with calmer but deep performances, while Wagner Moura is a very strong name when it comes to carrying characters under pressure. Louis Leterrier being in the director's chair also makes me think this movie may not be just a small, slow-moving house drama. Most likely, every room, every hallway, and every door inside the house will turn into a different space of tension. That is why this project needs to be placed on the darker side of the fantasy list. It is not pure fantasy, yes, but if there is an unexplained force, a closed space where reality begins to break down, and a supernatural sci-fi atmosphere, then this story definitely deserves to be on this list. Because sometimes the scariest fantasy world is not another universe, but the inside of your own home. Number 4. Steps. This time, we leave the dark atmosphere behind and enter a more colorful, more fairy tale-like, and family-friendly world. This animated film, coming on the 20th of November 2026, tells the Cinderella story not from the place we are used to, but from the side of the stepsisters. This idea alone is interesting, because it gives us a chance to look at characters we have known as evil for years from a different perspective. The fairy tale may start like the same fairy tale, but when the point of view changes, the whole story changes too. In the story, Lilith stands out as a misunderstood character. She is accused of sabotaging the royal ball, the fairy godmother's magic wand gets involved, and her sister Margot accidentally turns into a frog. On top of that, in the middle of all this chaos, the kingdom falls into the hands of a prince-obsessed villain. So here, there are familiar fairy tale elements like the glass slipper, the ball, magic, and the kingdom. But all of them are rebuilt in a much funnier, more twisty, and more modern way. The voice cast is also very strong. Names like Ali Wong, Stephanie Hsu, Amanda Seyfried, Bette Midler, and Nikki Glazer are included. This shows that the film may not be just a simple animation made for kids. It could be a project where adult viewers can also enjoy the character dynamics, the jokes, and the way the classic fairy tale formula is turned upside down. Especially the fact that Cinderella is not the only center of the story this time, gives the movie a different energy. The most interesting part here is the question of whether the people we know as villains are truly evil, or whether the story has simply been told from the wrong side. If the film uses this idea well, it could be not only a fun animation, but also a smart fantasy adventure that plays with how fairy tales are told. It looks like one of the most fairy tale-like projects in Netflix's 2026 animation calendar, but underneath, there may be a smarter story than expected. Number 5. Gunn. Toward the end of the year, we move into a completely different style. This animated film, coming on the 18th of December 2026, is not classic fantasy. It is more of a detective story, with a sci-fi noir atmosphere. But because of its alternative future, aliens, retro-futuristic cities, and stylized animation world, it looks very eye-catching on the fantasy, sci-fi side. Because sometimes the fantasy feeling does not come from magic, but from a world that looks like we are living in a completely different reality. The story takes place in a massive city called Metropia. This place is designed like an imagined future seen from the year 1939. Flying cars, jetpacks, Art Deco aesthetics, the dark atmosphere of old detective movies, and a science fiction world all come together in the same place. The main character, Gunn, is a small-time private detective who gets pulled into a murder case. But as the case grows bigger, aliens, media stars, and a much larger conspiracy enter the story. Brad Bird is one of the biggest points of attention here. After films like The Iron Giant, The Incredibles, and Ratatouille, his return with a new animated project is really important. The fact that names like Sam Rockwell, Scarlett Johansson, and Tom Waits are in the voice cast also shows that this does not look like an ordinary kids' animation. A more mature, more stylized, more cinematic, and more different animated experience could be coming. With this project, Netflix's 2026 fantasy calendar turns into a much wider picture. From cursed palaces to the magical realism of Macondo, from the nightmare of a family trapped inside a house to a Cinderella tale turned upside down, and finally to a retro detective world full of aliens, there are very different stories here. That is exactly why 2026 looks like a year where Netflix will not test just one type of fantasy, but many different colors of imagination at the same time. So which one of these projects are you most curious about? Which one do you think could be the biggest surprise on Netflix's fantasy side in 2026? Are dark and cursed palace stories more interesting to you? Or are you more excited for magical realism, animated fantasy, or sci-fi noir projects? Make sure to write your thoughts in the comments, because I am really curious to know which project you are waiting for the most. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more movie and series updates like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.